Well, thank you for staying tuned. We're still on. We have gone through preamble now, and then we've gone through storylines. We have configured the MCR investigation part. So that means we have established what we mean by a model concept, and then we're going to obviously be using the critical moment as what do you call it, worldview. The reality we found there, certain reality, certain lifestyle, and certain what do you call it, life. We could pick Mr. Sunday's life, his activities, our lifestyle. Going to church, going to work. The reality was the boss trying to be flirting around with him. And now in the other story of Mr. Olode, the royal guard, the reality was that the royal guard want to punish God's children. And we saw another reality, the church members will not allow that. So this is really the commentary. So we want to really pick them out and really say, okay, did anybody, let's say one of the choir members, fulfill a destiny? Was there an obligation or an opportunity? Those are things we want to explain. None here. So, but let's go on like this. Where are the critical moments in the play? Yeah, Mr. Sunday's ordeal at home and office, these are really critical moments. The way his landlord treated him, the way his wife treated him, the way the boss treated him, these are critical moments. He's having to sit down and recall all that he's gone through. It's really a critical moment. He could take any kind of irrational decision. His boss flirting around him too. Well, that's really a critical moment. That could ruin his personality. And people talk about, I don't want to soil my personality, my name, stuff like that. But that was a critical moment even for the boss too. We must admit. The church members decisively avoiding persecution. That was really a critical moment. The pastor wouldn't take the persecution. That was really a critical moment. And then we'll look at Baba Tomi or deal with the Olode. And there's a part in the storyline where we saw Baba Tomi went through series of rigor, and torment, and yet he wouldn't deny Christ. It wasn't just, a mere test. It was a thorough test, by the king. And then we have Awelawa search for true Christian as a suitor. That was really a critical moment. Who knows if Baba Tomia was just an extremist, or a green entity, whatever. She would have picked someone who was just zealous to take punishment, not really the ideal person. Well, these are really critical moments, we must admit. So, but for now, let's look at compromise core in critical moment. And a compromise core as part of maturity investigation is that we want to see of all the variables on the MCR investigation part, whether we can discuss them as being found in the critical moment. We want to see whether they are there in a critical moment. So, well, the first place to start with is the title bar. And we are just going to change the title bar. We're going to we're going to write critical moment here. Now, and the moment we do that, we have configured the MCR investigation part. And what that means is that we want to see how this compromise core, whether we can find it in the critical moment, whether these variables really exist, in the play critical moment. So let's go on. What we mean by maturity structure, is really, do we have a society, a community, the plot, the structure, the relationship, between the office, Mr. Sunday's house, his church, his friend, his landlord, and the like. So of course there are that. So we think there, and then we move on. Do we see a teacher and a student, a boss, Sunday and his boss, the lady evangelist? We think here. Do we see a maturity position? Well, there was a boss. The boss was Sunday's boss, and he was a junior staff. We think, it's that simple. Do we see a maturity situation? The situation Sunday found himself, the landlord coming to talk to him as he wanted, that really got to him, that provoked him. So we think that. And then do we see a condition? A condition is that Mr. Sunday have to pay his rent or he leaves their house. Another condition we saw was that the boss telling him that he has to flit around with him for him to have a way out. And then we saw Sunday's friend coming really to talk to him over things that he shouldn't do. That is what we mean by maturity therapy. So you see already we have achieved maturity score here. And then we'll move on to look at rights. Sunday had a contract, non-employment. That means there's a right. Do we see an admission? Well, the landlord took him in as a tenant. That's an admission. Well, for a while, Mr. Sunday apologized for not able to pay. That's more like a ritual, an apology, an apology. Do we see a redress? Yeah. What do we call him? The boss really redressed her way. So maturity content is basically setting the real maturity we could see in them. We saw someone who was spiritually sound. Sunday, we saw his friend who was sound in scripture. So we saw mental deposit. We can take there. We saw maturity initiative. The friends talk. Counsel. We maturity initiative, and of course the king too. Conceiving a plan. This is concept into concept, and then we saw mental control. We saw how even the what do we call it, the church member that left, it was just a mental control. They were able to control themselves and no, let's say this and get out of here. That's mental control. Mr. Babatomio too, for him to have conceived and went through the ordeal, at least suggest he had a mental control. And of course, the moment Mr. Sunday's friend gave him the initiative, he immediately had a mental control and said, no, I am not going back. I'm not going along with my boss. So we saw a lost entity. Who would that lost entity be? For a while we could talk about the boss. The boss was a lost entity. With all she invested, we wonder why she's behaving the way she was behaving. She's a lost entity. How do we see a growing entity? We could really talk about a growing entity here. Who could that be? Babatomio, at the time he was working with a pastor. He was a growing entity, the estimates. Who could be the estimates here? The landlord and Mrs. Thunder's wife. They were estimates in their behavior. We must acknowledge that. And then the traditionalist could be Sunday's friend. No, it took him. If were it not for him, he would have really gone with his waywardness, his desire to go on with the boss's proposal. So that was a traditionalist. His subjectivity and objectivity really made Mr. Sunday to have a better perspective about life. So that we can take. Then we saw destiny manifestation. Well, do we see a gift? Yeah, we saw a gift. It was a gift that Mr. Sunday's friend advised him. It was equally his function as a friend, we must acknowledge. And then there was a reward. Mr. Sunday got, what do you call it, his promotion letters, and Baba Tomiwa too, got Awadawa for a wife. So we move on to TTT of life. Did anybody experience test, trial, and temptation? Yeah, Mr. Sunday, Baba Tomiwa. And that really affected their self-esteem positively. The we see blessing, the immaterial blessing we saw was quoting from James, the book of the scripture. Material blessing was the money, the promotions Mr. Sunday received. Human blessing his friend, and God, of course, was mentioned. So we think that sexual, social, and spiritual. Yeah, we see that spiritual atmosphere, the church, social. The interaction with Sunday's friend, and sexual was not really as you would expect, but otherwise looking for a husband. That those are sexual. So we saw that. We move on to, can we say the king knows what he's doing? Yes. Can we say he understood what he was doing? Yeah. Can we say he appreciated what he was doing? Mr. Olode, yes. The Olode, can we say he enjoyed what he was doing? Yes. Can we say the king or anybody saw, and especially Mr. Sunday's friend, he saw, he lived, and of course he imparted Mr. Sunday. So that's just about what you do. It's a simple thing when you are doing taking compromise call. You just look around and find out whether you can see this in the play. Well, next time we are going to look at maturity's call of Mr. Sunday in critical moment. In critical moment, we're going to look at this maturity score. We want to see, compared to the compromise score, how much of his life or lifestyle or the reality he faced can be discussed on the MCR investigation part. Thank you. See you in the next video. Please don't go away.